So hi, my name's Kari. I am the holistic nutritionist for CKM. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist, and I also have a holistic nutrition blog called My Natural Balance, and I'm also working on my master's in public health. Growing up, I lived in a household that focused on health, and healthy eating was a big part of that, but it never really connected for me. And so I kind of got, when I went into university, got that freshman 15 where I just didn't really know what to eat or how to eat and didn't have the skills to do so. And then I started taking nutrition courses and kind of the light really went off, and I became so fascinated with the way that the body uses the nutrients that we have and the different types of food and how they actually affect you. So I started eating a little bit better and having that knowledge and started slowly developing the skills to be able to have that. And so that passion really grew. And then I looked into seeing, well, how can I expand on this knowledge? And so I found a holistic nutrition program, and so I did that for a year, and it was so fascinating, such an eye-opener to totally understand not just the food that we eat, but what our body does with that. And then even the story of the food, of where that food comes from, how it gets to our plates, and then how our body deals with that. It's not just calories in, calories out. Calories are not equal. All different calories have a different effect on our body depending on the nutrients that we need. And that's what's so important for athletics, that it's not just eating a bunch of calories because of the energy that you're expending, but that you're getting the nutrients that you need not only for energy but also for repair. Repair is a huge, important part of nutrition for athletes. So I think holistic nutrition is starting to get a little bit more popular, and people are starting to wondering, like, what is the difference between a registered dietitian and a holistic nutritionist? And the difference is, both are focusing on good quality food, but in holistic nutrition, the principles are natural, alive, and quality. So we're really looking at where that food comes from. That's a big part of it. So kind of shifting away from foods that are in packages to shifting to foods that are a little bit more natural and processed, or less processed. So quality is a really important part of that. And holistic nutrition also recognizes that nutrition is one component of everything that you're going to be doing. So you have the goal, whether that's to lose weight, gain strength, increase your endurance, and nutrition plays a very important part of that, but it's also just one component of a greater subset of things that are working together. And that's when people can really achieve their goals, when everything else is aligned and coordinated towards that goal. I think all in all, nutrition has changed my life by just giving me more balance. So I have the understanding, like, it's not just the food that I'm eating, but it's having the understanding, having the skills and the attitudes towards understanding the importance of healthy eating. And a lot of times I think that, people might undervalue the role that healthy eating has on our well-being until they start not eating well. And so as soon as they start not eating well, then they can really feel the effects. And so it really just gives that overall balance. I've noticed that for myself, my mood, my sleep, I have more energy for exercise. And so I think just well-rounded, it improves my well-being. So some of the most common nutritional deficiencies, it might not just be one nutrient, like just say magnesium or just calcium, but I think the most common thing that I see is not necessarily a deficiency, but a total focus on protein. So I need to get all the protein I possibly can get and then start to forget about a lot of other important nutrients. And so a lot of the times I've noticed that athletes will have a lot of meat, a lot of pasta and carbs, which is really important, but forgetting that the vegetables and fruit, those are where a lot of the vitamins and minerals are, and those are so important because they act as cofactors to help our body use that protein. So yes, we can eat the protein that we need, but then what does our body do with it? So we need the wide variety of a healthy diet to be able for our body to use that protein effectively. So it's not necessarily a deficiency, it's more so a focus on just one macronutrient, and they're really trying to get in all the protein possible. The other thing that I notice is the quality of carbohydrates. So a lot of times with the plans, I'll look at the kind of carbohydrates athletes are eating. And when we talk about carbohydrates, it's not just bread, pasta, rice. That's fruits and vegetables as well, so we need to remember that. And so the quality of carbohydrates that a lot of athletes may have are a little bit more processed. And what's meant by that is that the food is not in its natural whole form. And so it goes through some processing, and that might be for flavor, texture, shelf life is a really big thing with processing. But the issue with that is that a lot of nutrients get lost. A lot of nutrients are very sensitive to light and heat. So now you're not getting the amount of nutrients that you need. So the processed foods are a little bit more depleted. So you don't get that big nutrient gain that you want to have, because with being so active and you get a lot of natural inflammation that happens, you need those antioxidants, kind of other stuff that help to reduce inflammation within your body. So I think that's one of the biggest thing, is that seeing processed carbohydrates, thinking that yes, you need a whole bunch of carbohydrates, but a lot of times they're very processed and don't have all the nutrition that athletes need. So that's a big focus that I've noticed. Yeah, so nutrition plans are really important at any stage, whether you're really young just starting out or whether you've been playing for a long time. And I think what's most important with that is that you're building a strong foundation. So even though it might take a little bit longer to reach your goals, that you're building that strong foundation now so you can continue to benefit for years to come. So, you're having the understanding of which foods to choose. And one of the things that I really like to do is not to say, give an athlete a very strict plan of only eat this, don't eat this. It's you want to give them understanding and guidance towards certain foods to choose, because if you're training, if you're traveling, and you don't have access to that food that I suggested, then what? Like, you need to have the knowledge and understanding of how to make good choices. And so a lot of times, the importance of having a plan is that you start to build some of that knowledge, you start to build the foundation, you start to develop healthy habits that can continue to benefit you for years to come. I think some of the biggest improvements I've seen is that they're so focused on their goal, and so they have the nutrition, so that's the one component, but they're also focusing on other aspects of their life. So they're so focused that they're eating well, they're exercising, they're keeping their mind in check and in balance, they're sleeping well. And all in all, you can notice a shift in that person. So that shift is to become, more committed. And one of the big things that I've noticed is an increase in confidence. And I think that's huge for athletes, is that they have their goal and they're doing all these different aspects in their, their lifestyle to work towards that. And nutrition is a very foundational part of that. It's very interconnected to the other factors. And then they have a shift and they're much more confident, and having confidence is really important as an athlete, and you can continue to grow and build from there. The point of nutrition for athletics is to be very efficient. Your body wants to be efficient with how it uses that nutrition. So if you're taking in a lot of processed foods and toxins, your body has to spend its energy dealing with that toxins rather than spending that energy for recovery, because recovery is where you start to build and where things start to happen. So if you're eating a lot of processed foods, your body now has to focus on dealing with the natural inflammation that can happen from exercise, but also dealing with the processed foods. And if those processed foods are not full of nutrition, then you don't have, kind of everything that you need to combat what happens. So I think a lot of times I'll recommend to athletes to avoid sports drinks or make your own. So that's actually a recipe that we hand out, is to make your own sports drinks. Just because the shift with holistic nutrition is try and not eat as much processed stuff, and that's because of the additives, preservatives. One of the things that I try and encourage athletes to do is read nutrition labels, see what you're eating. If you can't pronounce some of that stuff, then your body probably doesn't know what to do with it either, and it's better to avoid it. It's better to know what you're putting in your body. Your body knows how to deal with it, and it can continue to be more and more efficient with the food that you're giving it. And that's the key. It's not just what you're eating, it's what your body does with it. That's a really good point. So when the plans that we give, yes, they're directed for the player, but the questions that we ask are, who the player may live with and who makes the meals, because food is not just what you're eating, but it's how you're preparing it and who is preparing it. So I would suggest that, the parents or the billets even take a look at the plans that we're handing out, because dinners typically affect everybody. So if you can try and shift the dinners to meet the needs of the player, or it's the player getting the skills to be able to prepare their own food. So that's a part of it too, that, especially for breakfast, I've noticed a lot of players will just have cereal, which is fine, but cereal's pretty processed and there's not much nutrition in it. And so we try and shift towards different types of breakfast, whether that's a protein smoothie or overnight oats or granola, but the player probably maybe might have enough time to be able to prepare their own meals. So again, it's not just about the specific foods that they're eating, but it's, it's kind of the larger concept of food, to be able to have the skills to prepare your own meals as well. So yeah, I think it's important that the parents have a look to see what the plan is.